Does the inside of the trunk of your old Firebird look similar to this right here? Not exactly what you were hoping for. You'd like to clean it up and make it look a whole lot more gooder, kind of like this right here. Well, that's what we're about to do here on the old Great Pumpkin here this afternoon. You'd like to see how it's done? Stay tuned. And wouldn't that be awesome? You just push a button and the trunk magically goes from this to like what I just showed you, the finished product. Well, it's really not overly complicated. It's a pretty easy procedure. Now, it depends on how far you want to go on these trunk floors and the inside of the trunk. The factory finish differentiates between the year, what plant it was assembled at, and maybe sometimes just what day it was and how the guy was painting it felt that day. But typically, they're either a black or a gray paint, and then you have your splatter paint, which is either just specks or it's actually stringy. So if you want to get all technical about it, do some homework, dig into it deep. I didn't go that crazy. This is a beautiful car. It's going to be nice, but I don't need to be a concourse original restoration. I just want it to look tidy and resemble something you might see from the factory. But most of all, keeping it clean and making it look nice. You know, on a simple budget, try to make this as simple as possible. I'll show you what we have here inside the trunk, and I'll show you the products we're going to use, and then we'll get started. Digging inside the trunk here, as you can see, the trunk floor has all been sanded down. You see a lot of bare steel. I'm going to use an epoxy primer first on all this and cover all of it up. I've already got all the seam sealing finished. It looks really good. Got everything wiped down, cleaned up. I've scuffed everything with a Scotch-Brite pad that was kind of hard to reach, so get good adhesion up here inside the deck. Got that rear deck practice tray, whatever you want to call it. Got that all scuffed up. And this here's all been sanded. I started with 80 grit, then finished with 320. Then the insides of the quarter panel still has that factory for the panels, that EDP coating. So I just kind of scuffed it and sanded it, just kind of give it some tooth or some bite. Because this isn't the outside of the car. It doesn't have to have a super glossy, super smooth, super nice finish, because we're actually going to finish it with a splatter paint, or that paint that, you know, has that texture and everything else to it. So just wanted to make it look good. And the biggest thing is corrosion protection. These trunks, no matter what you do, they always seem to leak a little bit. So I'm going to put that epoxy down first to help prolong the life of our trunk, so I don't have rust bleeding through everything else. So that should help out immensely. But everything's all wiped down. I'm going to wipe it down and give one more time a little bit of alcohol and a tack cloth. Make sure I got any other last minute residue up. I'll paint everything all the way up to here to the inside edge of the gutter on the trunk. The taillights, you don't have to get carried away taping those, because the taillight assembly covers all of this. But everything else, the rest of the holes, I've taped off because I don't want overspray going on the outside of the car or on the underbody. I've got it all doctored up all pretty. So you can see the tape here. Here it's all on the outside. And then same thing all up in there. I've got all of that taped off so I don't blow a bunch of paint inside the interior. Even though it's not done, I just don't want a bunch of overspray up there. Put a little masking here on the trunk, so in case I'm in here painting, I want to try to keep the paint concentrated down in here, but there's always that chance. So I went ahead and just did the whole thing wrapped with tape and paper. So my favorite, masking, yay. But what we're going to use for painting, this is an epoxy primer. This isn't PPG. It's about half the cost, but it's inside the trunk. I'm very confident this product's going to work just fine for me. This is a 60% gloss black paint. Sprays out really nice, coverage is good, and the sheen isn't super glossy. Then I want to go over top of it with just a little bit of this here. This is the aqua version, black and aqua. It covers pretty good, but I'm going to use it pretty sparingly, just enough to get a little bit of a color and a little bit of texture, so I may have to have 2 cans of that, but we'll see how well that goes. But we'll go ahead and get some of the epoxy primer mixed up, get it set in here in the paint gun, and we'll wipe the inside of this trunk down one last time and get the spraying. All right, here's my wax and grease remover. You can tell it's the Equate version of super cheap rubbing alcohol. My buddy Brian Minson out there in Arizona, he likes to drink this stuff, I think. So, but I'm going to refrain from doing that. But I'm just going to, this is a tack cloth, basically. I'm going to give one last wipe down on the whole surface here. And this does a real good job removing any last bit of oil or anything that may be on the surface. And I do the same thing on the outside of the car. So this is my super special, inexpensive wax and grease remover. Now, I mean, there's pros and cons to it, but stuff's cheap. It hasn't really failed me. I've never had any contamination problems or fisheye issues or anything with it, so I'm going to keep using it. But everyone has their own opinion. But I guess you say, when it comes to this channel here, I'm going to show you the right way, the wrong way, and the VVG way. If anything, I'm just trying to get you to do a little thinking, and maybe you got a better plan or something that works better. And what I'm doing isn't the only way, is what I'm trying to say. And then just kind of come with your own thing. There's always a better way, possibly, or something that might work better. And of course, if you do find something, please share it with the group. That's the point of this adventure. Share what I've learned, and the do's and don'ts, the right, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So, all right, finish wiping this down, and we'll get to painting. All right, well, let's talk about paint. I got the epoxy all loaded up here in the gun. Someone had a couple questions on what I use for a paint gun. This is a Mac Tools brand, so I paid extra money just for that word, Mac Tools. SG 1300. I think I call this their Econo Coat gun. 1.3 tip, Been a phenomenal gun. Lays the paint great, does really nice job. Makes a guy like me turn into a pretty decent painter. Now, that's not to say you got to spend $180 for this thing, but you can buy a decent paint gun. But just some people had asked what I use. And I use a little pressure gauge here, about a 40 PSI with a trigger pull to continuously. It seems to work pretty good for this gun, but those numbers are irrelevant because every gun sprays a little different, your compressor, but maybe that's a starting point. But nonetheless, let's get this thing going here. Let's put some gray on. Getting this in here is going to be a trick, I think. Alright, so what's it look like all said and done? Not too bad, I suppose. This is just inside the trunk. Got a nice even coat of an epoxy primer on this now. That's going to help seal up our metal and, you know, prolong the life of this car. Hopefully it never gets in the bad weather, but let's be honest, this car is going to be driven, and there's a chance it's going to get a little water in the trunk. So I'll give that about 15 more minutes there to dry up, flash off, whatever you want to call it. And then we'll go ahead and hit it with some of that 60% gloss black and hope that it comes out just as nice. But now we're ready to go ahead and start spraying the black. Now the black, we're going to do a little bit different. I'm going to get in here a little further, get all the edging or all the hard to reach places painted first, because this thing just is big, okay? It doesn't fit in there that great. So I'm going to try to get all the hard to reach places. Then I'll come back and do a nice blend to get everything all leveled out. And hopefully that's going to work pretty good. But let's go ahead and mask up here and get the black paint going here and see how it goes. Oops. All right, there we go. All 60% gloss, just about dried off. I'm gonna go ahead and start doing the next part of the process here. Just kind of a super light mist coat of this stuff here should get the job done. I'm not gonna get carried away. I don't want to put it on super thick. I just want enough to just a little bit of contrast, give that paint a little bit of texture, kind of hide some of the dust that's in here. Because let's be honest, it's inside the trunk. It's not perfectly clean. It's got little dust nibs in it. But this is going to help out. And I may even put a trunk mat in here too to help protect the finish I got on here. But I'll go ahead and hit everything I kind of painted black with just a really light coat of this. Ta-da! Alright, now you can see that was just one can moving quickly and keeping it far away. I'll tell you what, actually it covered a little better than I thought it was going to, and I absolutely love the results. That gives you kind of a factory look, durable because we have the epoxy underneath it, and the textured, I guess, that spray paint there covers up all the little dust that was in the paint. So this makes for a very clean looking trunk floor. There you have it. Trunk floor painted, looks really nice. Again, now if you were doing a concourse original restoration, that's not correct, but it's the right color, but it's not quite the exact 100% original way. But there really isn't a good supplier of the paint to do it back the original way. And again, this isn't a original restoration. This is a restoration or a modified car, kind of bring it up to really good condition without blowing the budget. So no reason to get carried away and, you know, making that 100% original. But I will tell you, that looks a whole heck of a lot nicer than the trunk floor that we started with. But now that is finished, you know, outside paint's done, inside the trunk paint is done. Now we can start putting things in like the fuel filler neck here. Check this thing out. I'm gonna work on putting this installed. The taillights can now go in the car, lock cylinder, side marker lenses, all that stuff can be assembled into this car. So that's what we're gonna say, moving towards the end, almost to the finish line. So of course, we've got plenty more videos to come. I'm gonna start working on my way towards the front of the car. I can even put the back bumper on the car. That means all the shine, all the bling is gonna start happening here, and this car is really gonna come together quick. So of course, I'm gonna keep doing the videos you guys are requesting on the final assembly here. I'll try to make sure I get all those out there to you. Appreciate you following me on the journey of the Great Pumpkin back to life, and then I got some ideas for what's gonna be happening next as soon as this one's done. So don't you worry, plenty more videos or bird videos yet to come. So hope to see you guys then.